Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Carol, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Our speaker is William Sim, the VP at Academy for APAC, and he'll be sharing with you on how Salesforce is to fuel the Salesforce economy. Do feel free to chat with us by clicking on the icon that says Discussion Forum, which is available right at the bottom of the screen in front of you. We will also have a Q&A session after the presentation, and we look forward to answering some of your questions via the live Q&A option provided. Over to you, William.
Hello, my name is William Sim, and I'm the Vice President of Trailhead Academy APAC. For those of you that don't know Trailhead Academy, it is the learning, skilling, certification arm of Salesforce. We look after the training for customers, partners, and the whole community. And I'm based in Singapore. What I want to do during this session is to share with you some of the initiatives that we have, which involve scaling up a lot of Salesforce talent in the Southeast Asia ecosystem. What we want to do is to share with you not just what we're doing, but also why we're doing it, and also the methodology that we're using as well. And I'm hoping that at the end of this session, that would trigger off some thoughts in your mind, and you might be able to provide us with more information, right, or your feedback in terms of what you think we should be doing more, right, in your respective countries. You can always find me on wsim@salesforce.com. So what is Salesforce doing in terms of creating jobs to fuel the Salesforce ecosystem? Now, this is a very popular slide that a lot of you have already seen. It is still a very important slide because Salesforce is a publicly listed company, and that any purchasing decision ought to be made based on information that is publicly available. This is the second most popular slide. And what we want to do is to take this opportunity and thank you, especially to the organizers of this Sea Dreaming session. We want to thank you sincerely for taking time to organize this particular session that is going to benefit so many people. And also thank you to the listeners as well for jumping into this particular session. Hopefully you get a lot of benefit out of the sessions as well. And for those of you who are frontline health workers or just volunteers to help with to combat COVID-19, we want to thank you for making our ecosystem a much safer place. Now, not only do we want to thank you, we want to congratulate you as well. Congratulate you for being a trailblazer. Because what is a trailblazer? A trailblazer is a leader that sets up a path for others to follow, which is what the organizers of this particular Sea Dreaming has done. We've set up this particular session so that others will be able to benefit out of it. For those of you who are attending this session, you are a trailblazer as well, because you're taking this opportunity, networking, sharing your knowledge with others so that others will again be able to benefit. So at the end of the day, what we want to do is to create trailblazers so that we'll be able to build a better world for others. Now, we know that this world of ours is changing. We've spoken to a lot of our customers and partners, and one thing is for sure, that digital transformation is now a must. Customers need to go digital. They need to find ways in order to create more transactions, retain their customers. They need to find ways so that they'll be able to interact with the customers in a contactless manner as well. Whatever the case is, now it seems like the mantra is digital first. Now, this need for digital transformation has actually accelerated our Salesforce ecosystem to the point whereby the IDC, for those of you that don't know IDC, it is an independent research company, and it has created a report that shows that in order for Salesforce to retain our revenue trajectory, which is growing at an exponential manner, then we need to create another 9.3 million jobs out there in our ecosystem. That's 9.3 million new Salesforce talent needed by year 2026. And the reason why we need so many people is because the Salesforce economy is going to generate about 1.6 trillion new businesses by the same time as well. Now, we're all in Southeast Asia, so in terms of these 9.3 million, if we were to drill down into that particular number, what we found is that about 31,000 needs to be created, 31,000 new jobs needs to be created in Thailand. 18.6 thousand new Salesforce talent needs to be created in Singapore. Now, for those of you who are in Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, we know we're lobbying the IDC group right now and hoping that in the subsequent reports that we will have figures for those particular countries as well. But right now, those stats falls under the rest of Asia Pacific. And Asia Pacific requires a whopping 2.2 million new Salesforce talent in that particular ecosystem by 2026. Now, there's a few ways of looking at this particular set of data. One way is to say that for those who already have Salesforce talent, then you're doing well because your skill set is in hot demand. This means that your skill set will be there for quite some years to go. Another way of looking at that, though, is to say that, well, IDC report has now forecasted so many thousands of jobs that's needed in our ecosystem by 2026. So from my department's perspective, what it means is that we need to figure out ways of generating a supply of those particular talent so that the supply can meet the demand. And that's basically what we have been trying to do. Now, what we can easily have done is to just go to a few countries, go to those particular universities, and then just put them through like 5-day training for admin. But it's not just technical skills that is needed. What we want to do is we want to create those talents and make them successful in years to come. And to do that, definitely they need to know how the Salesforce platform works. They need to know the technical skills, the functional skills behind that. But we also want to make sure that they are aware of, for example, the Trailhead platform. Because remember, this is Salesforce here. We have 3 releases in a year. Right? What that means is that the skill set that you have now, you need to maintain it and upgrade yourself in years to come. And what better way to upgrade yourself than to have access to the Trailhead e-learning platform. We also want to make sure that these new talents knows about the App Exchange as well, because App Exchange is the marketplace for all the enterprise add-ons and bolt-ons. Why would you want to create and put in a lot of customization when that same feature might already be there in the App Exchange for you to just download? And of course, we want this cohort of new talent to be aware of the Trailblazer community, people like yourselves, right? Because what we want to do is to allow them to be mentored by yourself. In the short term, they might want to ask questions in terms of how do I actually work around this particular super batch challenge, right? In the long term, I'm sure they will have questions about the job and also the career, which you'll be able to provide them with some guidance. These are the types of tools and avenues that we want them to have access to. Now, we also want to share with you the methodologies that we're using to create this particular talent. And it's a very simple 3 steps. The first step is basically us going to our customers and partners and asking them, so what type of cohorts are you after? And they have told us that what they're after belongs to kind of 2-3 groups. First group is students, university students, undergraduates, postgraduates. The second groups are people that have a few years of working experience. So that's your career switchers that we call them. And in Salesforce, we're all here to look after people who are the underemployed, the vulnerable people in the diversity and inclusion range. That this is part of our core values. So we want to make sure that we help to skill up those people in that group as well. The second thing that we explore is what are the skill sets that we need to teach them? Again, we talked about it previously. We want to make sure that they have all the technical skill sets relevant, the business skills and soft skills as well. We want to make sure at the end of the day that they're job ready, that any customers and partners out there that wants to hire will be able to hire this group of people, and this group of people will be able to hit the ground running, so to speak. And once these talents has been trained, we want to make sure that we help them with the placement as well. Because at the end of the day, the whole purpose of us doing this is really to make sure that our Salesforce customers and partners can find the right talent that they need for their implementations for their company. So we want to make sure that we get the supply of cohort to meet the demand. So what I want to do right now is to just share with you some of the initiatives that we're doing in Southeast Asia. For those of you that comes from Thailand, Sawadee Krap. We are currently working with the Thai government, specifically with the agency called DIPA, the Digital Economy of Promotion Agency. Now, the Thai government has told us that one of the areas that they would like us to explore is helping the youth in Thailand. At the end of the day, that's the future generation of Thailand. So what we've done is that we've agreed to train up at least 100 youth. These are university students. We want to place them in a 3-week boot camp consisting of them learning Salesforce Admin, Salesforce App Builder, Salesforce Platform Developer 1. We're also training lecturers in the university as well, because we want to make sure that the training is going to be in Thai. The last thing we want is for students to not be able to catch up with the training as a result of a lack of English. Now, after they've gone to the training, what we also want to do is to make sure that they have the opportunity to reach out to our customers and partners. So we're setting up events for that as well. And overall, this is an investment of about 19 million baht, or about 600,000 US dollars that we're putting in to help with the Thai ecosystem, generate the talent that is needed. Now, some of you might say that, well, 100 students, is that all? And the answer is, well, this is just a pilot phase. What I'm hoping to do personally is, you see that number 100, I'm hoping to add a few more zeros the next time we talk. So that's our inspiration. In Singapore, the Singapore government has created quite a few programs to look after the career switches. And Salesforce have collaborated with the Singapore governments in specifically 2 programs that we want to highlight here. The first one is SG United, which is a 6-month-long government program. And with that, Salesforce have created the Salesforce Career Kickstarter program that teaches students about, teaches mid-career switches about Salesforce Admin, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, even skills like Tableau, for example. Remember, this is a 6-month-long program, so we can add in a bit more variety there. And after that, after the students have gone through a 6-month course, we have a program manager called NTU, Nanyang Technology University. And what NTU does is that they collect the surveys, the CVs, and pass the CVs to the Salesforce customers and partners for hiring purposes. So that's SG United. We're also participating in the PCP program as well. In terms of the PCP program, the only difference here is that we go to a customer or partner and ask them how many people do they want to hire in their Salesforce department. And for those group of people, we slightly tailored the program to suit their needs, so that that particular company can now hire however many people they want based on their attitude, and the fact that they don't have the Salesforce knowledge doesn't really matter, because we will then step in and skill those people up with the relevant Salesforce skill sets. Right? So that's, in short, is the PCP program. Right? I think they've changed the name now to CCP, Career Conversion Program. So overall, in terms of this particular program, at the end of each year, we're hoping to get something like 100 plus people coming out from the Singapore ecosystem, right, with the right Salesforce knowledge. With these respective two countries, we're also embedding our Salesforce courses, right, into their national learning portals. For those of you who are in Singapore, you know about My Skills Future, which is the Salesforce, which is the Singapore National Learning Portal. And if you go in there, you'll find that a few Trailblazers has already been set up there. Thailand, likewise, DIPA has a national portal that has free learning platforms. And when you go in there, you'll find that, again, there's a few Trailblazers in there. Now, the approaches that we've talked about so far is more like a top-down approach where we talk to the government, right, and then work with those initiatives. What we want to share with you now is that for some of those countries, for the other countries where we're still currently working with the government, but because of COVID, it slows things down, we've taken out a bottom-up approach where we're talking to selective universities in those particular countries. So in Malaysia, for example, we're working with Taylor's University in the School of ICT. And Taylor's University is the #1 private university in Malaysia. But we are currently embedding our courses into their ICT curriculum so that students, once they graduate, they will know Salesforce. Likewise, in Philippines as well, we're talking to a few universities over there. And again, the same thing. Students will be coming out with the Salesforce skill set. Singapore, we're working with Ngee Poly, we're working with Republic Poly, the ITE, the Institute of Technical Education. And in case sometimes people ask, well, what about the various universities? Remember that in Salesforce, what we like to do is always try to help the people that needs the help more. So, and that's students like ITE, for example. And some of the polys, then the university students. We are working with some of the university students, but our focus is on the polytechnics and the ITE. Right. And overall, just want to say that at the end of each year, really, really proud to say this, that about 1,000 to 2,000 students will be coming out from these particular initiatives in Southeast Asia that will have Salesforce knowledge with it. Going to Hong Kong now. Now, I know that Hong Kong isn't exactly part of Southeast Asia, but I also know that a lot of people sitting in Southeast Asia have to look after the Salesforce implementations in Hong Kong as well. And as a result, we have been working with one of the most important fund in Hong Kong, which is called the RTTP fund, right? And in short, what that funding does is that it subsidizes about 66%, 2/3 basically, of any training costs, provided that the training is for technologies that's related to the 4th Industrial Revolution. And Salesforce courses is obviously part of that. So Hong Kong is also covered. So overall, what I want to do is just share with you this particular short initiatives that we are running in Southeast Asia. And I'm hoping that would trigger out some thoughts, ideas in you as well, so that you'll be able to provide us with some feedback in terms of what can be better for those of you in other countries. What else can we do in those particular countries now that you lived in? Maybe you might have some contact to universities, to governments, etc. Please feel free to reach out to myself or my team if you do. And you can contact us on trailheadgtmasia@salesforce.com, or you can contact me directly on wsim@salesforce.com. So with that, just want to say thank you. And I look forward to talking to you shortly. Bye.
Thanks, William, for your sharing. I'm sure that has gotten people excited now on how they can join the Salesforce ecosystem. We will start our Q&A session now, and as mentioned, please post your questions into the live Q&A chat option provided below. This is so as to ensure that we do not miss out any of the questions coming in. So, William, how are you feeling today?
Hey, I'm feeling good, thank you. Mind you, I was kind of cringing a bit just then when the typical things when you're listening to your own video being recorded. And I'm usually a person that kind of speaks faster than what the presentation pace is. So to slow myself down and trying to speak slowly and trying to get the words out, well, it was quite challenging actually. And yeah, definitely when I'm just listening to myself, just said, a lot of goosebumps just came out. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
anyway.
more than happy to answer any questions though.
Yeah, and you're in luck because there are quite a few
Ah,
questions that
good.
came in as you're doing your
Fantastic.
presentation virtually. So there is a question from Lisa. So the question goes, most of the Salesforce administrator roles require at least 3 years experience for those that just got certified in Salesforce administrator. What is your advice in order for them to land a job offer?
Oh, okay. Nowadays you find that because there's so much demand for Salesforce jobs, admin, developers, etc., especially admins, frankly, in places like Singapore, um, you find that people's expectation has also lower, which is kind of a good thing. Last time I remember a few years ago, it was like 3 years of experience, etc. Now they don't look at it like that anymore, especially now when we have the Trailhead platform out. Because what you want to do is you want to go through those administrative related courses, get the badge, the super badges especially. And what you can find is that employers are generally willing to compromise in terms of you not having maybe 3 years of experience, but you having enough technical skills so that they can groom you up. And when I say that, I can back it up with some examples because we do have people who have gone through courses of ours that are practical as well as theoretical, but definitely do not have the 3 years of experience, but are able to get themselves Salesforce administration jobs. Right.
Okay, so along that note, Lisa would also like to know how is the job market demand for the Salesforce administrators in Singapore?
Oh, well, that you need to ask like a recruiter, I guess. But if you to ask me for a gut feeling, well, firstly, it depends on which particular country. But in general, if you're talking about Southeast Asia, other than Philippines, and the reason why is because Philippines tends to be more developers over there. If you're talking about Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand to a certain extent, then there's definitely a lot of Salesforce administration demand. And what I can also say is that in terms of this particular Southeast Asia countries, the top three type of roles are Salesforce admin, Salesforce developer, and Salesforce marketer. These are the three. So you can't go wrong basically if you're going for Salesforce admin. And remember that admin tends to be a fundamental, the foundational piece. And then from then onwards, you can then specializes into sales consultants, service consultants, etc. after that. But you definitely need that. And a lot of our employers tend to go for people that have these particular skills as the fundamental.
Hmm, understandable. So there's another question from Prakash. So his question was, what are the chances of just 1 second? What are the chances of people who doesn't have experience as consultants in Salesforce but have knowledge and are certified to join a job to land a job in this ecosystem?
So if you don't have it's pretty similar to, I guess, the first question in the sense that if you don't have the experience as a consultant, what's the chances of landing the job? We are seeing a lot of that in the ecosystem. In that for example, you talk about consulting. So if I were to share with you that a lot of consulting companies would say to us, look, um, we want people ideally with consulting background, and then you train them up in Salesforce. Alternatively, we also want people that do not have consulting background, um, but have Salesforce skill sets as well. And the reason for that is because there's again a lot of jobs out there, as in a lot of demand for people out there. to the point whereby some of the consulting companies would say to us, we can't start our projects unless you have these particular skills. So they are willing to negotiate, they're willing to look at different areas, and they're willing to groom up people, so long as your attitude is good, so long as you're willing to learn. And then that's when they would say, look, I do want to see these people. I guess to follow up on this particular question, because this is one that frankly I get asked a fair bit, is, well, how do I prove myself? How do I show myself and get those particular jobs then? You'll find that a lot of times they do ask for things like, well, do you have certifications? Do you have super badge, at least, to prove yourself, to kind of ascertain that you do have certain skill sets? And if you have a few of those particular super badges and certifications, then a lot of time you find that consultants are willing to at least go to the first step of going through an interview. That's at least our experience anyway.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I do know some partners, they actually value their employees or future employees rather having badges on Trailhead and also super badges. So they actually do value that when they take into account hiring considerations. Yep.
Mm.
So there's a question from Erwin. And the question was, great initiative there for Thailand. Is Trailhead Academy thinking of doing the same for Philippines?
Great question, because that is definitely in the top of my mind. I have a feeling that when you type this question, you might not have seen my latest slide, which is that, yeah, right now we are going through a few countries, and Philippines is definitely one of them. Unfortunately, with COVID, the government is a bit tied up right now, as you can imagine, trying to stabilize the country's economy first with COVID. So this type of initiative that we're doing is not exactly in the forefront of their mind as we speak. However, after saying that, specifically with Philippines, what we're trying to do is talk to a particular government institute that is very similar to DEPA. I won't mention the name because it was still in negotiation, but it's very similar to DEPA, and we're trying to see whether we can do a similar initiative like DEPA. And what we're also trying to do is a two-pronged attack, going to the universities as well, and saying, well, look, university, if the government is rather preoccupied right now, then maybe we can talk to you about running similar initiative for you. And we're not doing that just for Philippines and Thailand as well. Okay, just in case you're asking about Malaysia, if you're based in Malaysia, we're thinking of working with Malaysian government as well. And Singapore's already covered. Right now, it's more like we don't want to go to also too many countries. Otherwise, it's going to kill our bandwidth. What we want to do is work with our nearby countries first, make sure that we have run the iterations and that it is foolproof. We might want to tweak it a few times here and there. And once it's really, really successful, then that's when we want to go more like a big bang after that. So a lot more to come. And definitely we do not want to just reduce ourselves to just a few countries. We want to definitely reach out to more countries in our Southeast Asia.
Okay. So there's a question from Krishan. I am actually not sure which program he's referring to, but if he is talking about the professional conversion program that you shared earlier, which has recently been rebranded as career conversion program. So the question goes, does that mean that if someone wants to switch career from any career into Salesforce ecosystem, is the program for them, or is there any special targeted groups?
Okay, I have to make a few assumptions in terms of this particular question. And I have to agree with you, Carol, that if the question is to do with the PCP or the CCP
or
program,
the DEPA one even, yeah.
or the DEPA one, then the answer is yes, you want to reach out to us in order for us to work with the government to make sure that you qualify for those particular programs. And once you qualify the programs, the answer is yes. If you're talking about those particular programs are there for career switches. So you're absolutely right there. And because we've run this program for about 2 years now, what we have seen are people who work in a major local supermarket, as in Singapore-based supermarket chain, and that person is a procurement person, minimal IT background, let alone consulting, let alone sales skill set. We train them up, and they manage to find jobs with one of our partners. We've trained people who are beyond 50 years old, no real consulting background, um, have project management background. We train them up, and then they manage to get a job in our Salesforce ecosystem of customers partners. We've trained up people with, we've trained up young people, old people, um, technical skills or non-technical skills,
Yeah.
consulting skills or non-consulting skills. Again, they manage to get a fair bit of jobs, right? So the short answer is yes. I guess it also depends on the attitude as well of the person, and that willingness to learn and willingness to expand your career, because that's usually what the customers, the employers are telling us, that these are the people that they're after, the X factor that they're asking for.
Mm. Thank you. There's one question from Rizzo. Do you think that there are some required compulsory certifications to get a job in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Sorry,
So Rizzo is a 13-year-old boy who's
right,
speaking
I thought that
tomorrow.
was him.
Hi, Rizzo.
Hey, Rizzo. Hi.
Trailblazer.
Yeah, sorry. I got a bit distracted when you mentioned his name. So can you just repeat the question again?
So the question was, do you think that there are some required compulsory certifications to get a job in the Salesforce ecosystem?
There's no real compulsory certifications to go for. The reason for that is because if you go for like marketing, for example, then that is quite a different skill set to if you're going for administration or if you are going for developer, right? There isn't none. There isn't any. However, after saying that though, if you're unsure, if you want to, if you're from a functional background, then generally we say to you, you probably want to get Salesforce admin, because from a functional background, that is the certification that is most in demand. If you have a technical background, a lot of my friends coming from like India, for example, they get themselves the developer platform developer one certification, right? Because they are very strong with the developer side, so they learn the Salesforce platform developer one knowledge, and they're able to pass the exam quite easily, right? And that is then the foundation for all developer courses then. Right, so kind of depends on, I guess, the skill that you want to use in the first place, that you possess in the first place. Which Rizu, I understand that you're, well, you could be functional as well as administration. You have quite a few good skills there.
Okay, I think we might have time for another one or two questions. So the next one
Sure.
is, how's the job market for demand for Salesforce developer in Singapore?
Salesforce developer, there's always demand for it, and the reason for that is because there's always GSIs over here. When I mean GSI, I'm talking about the global system integrators, like your Accenture, your Deloitte, your IBM, etc. They always have a need for people that have the developer skill set, and the reason for that is because they can get administrators that does functional work, but they typically like developers, because developers can do two things. One is they can actually code, right? The other is that they can be the intermediary between the business as well as the actual hardcore developers itself, because they can kind of speak two languages, right? It's always a handy skill to have. Mind you, once you have the developer certifications or the developer knowledge itself, what I find is that sometimes people might not go into a developer role, right? They might end up becoming a functional role, but it's so handy for them to have that developer skill set still, though, right? So the answer is yes. There's a fair bit of roles out there, but not just for developers role, could be functional role, but they still they still prefer to have people that have that developer skill set. Hopefully that's clear.
Okay. Due to time constraint, we only have time for one more question, and I am unfortunately not able to complete the rest of questions, but we will send a link whereby you can contact us via our email alias for us to answer those questions. So the last question is from Smita. Do you think the English language communication skills is a constraint for job readiness in non-native English speaking countries? Does Salesforce plan to incorporate it or keep it as the entry criteria for the programs?
Um, well, in Thai, for example, you'll find that it is not English is not a prerequisite in any way for you to get the jobs, but it is a very handy skill for you to learn. In the reason for that is because unfortunately in Salesforce right now we haven't translated a lot of our materials into the local languages yet. So Trailhead platform, for example, is translated only in a few limited language like Japanese, etc., but not Thai. And yeah, so you find that it does tend to restrict you a bit in terms of your ability to learn. However, it doesn't restrict you in terms of your ability to find jobs in your local country, right? Because at the end of the day, what they want is people that knows features, functionality, the role that you need to play. You need to be strong in that. And in terms of your communication, it really depends on the local country's needs.
Okay. So that will actually conclude our Q&A session. And as mentioned, please post your questions and send it via email to us, because we will still want to attend to those and answer those questions that you have. So I will pass the time back to Pei Lai, who will brief you on the sessions for tomorrow. Over to you, Pei Lai.
Okay, thank you, William and Caroline, for the great sharing session. I hope all our trailblazers learn a lot from this, right? So, all the trailblazer on the call, thank you for joining in today. We will be resuming day two of the Sea Dreaming event tomorrow at 10 a.m. Singapore time with our second keynote session by Jessica Langston. Please do try to join in early and network with some of our trailblazers through the speed networking session that is starting at the 9:30 a.m. Singapore time. Have a good evening, everyone, and see you all tomorrow. Bye.